and 7 crowns upon his head, and his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them down to the earth. So that's the Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, but I'm pretty sure it's on point. That's dealing with Judah, Benjamin, and Levi that was left within the with the remnant of the 12 tribes of Israel, of course. But it was the Jews that was left, and the 9 tribes had already gone over onto the Americas. So it says here, and his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them down to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered to devour her child as soon as it was born. And that was the Herodian dynasty that he thought he was, I'm king. There's no other king nor the Jews apart from me. Send out there and kill every boy that's of this age band. Okay? That's the nature of Esau. Here it is, the Messiah was going to prophesy from thousands of years ago. Okay, the Messiah is coming on the scene. This dude is like, what? There's a king of the Jews? Go kill all the boys out there. All right, that's of that particular age. But see, the Messiah threw a curveball. And he threw a curveball not only for, was it Herod? Okay, not only for him, but also too, he threw a curveball, right, for the Jews that was within Israel. Because not only did the Messiah go out there into a different land, all right, after he was born. Now, I believe he was born in Bethlehem. I have to apologize. My memory, I always have to double check my memory. I have to double check everything. My memory is not perfect. So I do apologize if I get the sites and names of places mixed all up. But he was born in Bethlehem, and he was what? He was dwelling, he had fled out there, I believe, into the interiors of Egypt for a certain amount of time, up until the time he came, it was ready for him to preach the ministry. So when the Jews said, look, this wasn't the Messiah supposed to come from this particular land? And now he's coming from that one. That was a curveball. That was a stumbling block, because it wasn't what? It wasn't given unto them to have the faith, but it was given unto Abram to have the faith, and it was given unto the woman to have the faith, and it was given unto Cornelius to have the faith. See, they believed, man. They said, no, I believe through faith. No, I can't prove it. I can't say, look, this, that, and the third, but I believe through faith that you're the son of the Most High. And lo and behold, every prophecy was fulfilled in the son of the Heavenly Father, all right? Even though the Most High put particular stumbling blocks out there to what? To sift out the undesirables, okay? To sift out the faithless ones. The scripture talks about, no effeminate was going to enter into the kingdom, right? No fornicators, no adulterers, no effeminate, which goes on to what? Having a lack of faith. So you could be meticulous within the law. You could be meticulous within the observance of our customs. But we're supposed to be rehearsing the righteous acts right now, and we're under grace, and it's through faith we was going to inherit the things coming from Yahweh Shai. So that's the little point that I wanted to deal with here. 5th verse, and it says, and she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all the nations. This is Yahweh Shai with a rod of iron. Revelation 2:25. He that keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. Now hold on a minute. Here it is saying that this is dealing with one person. Why is it also saying within the book of Revelation, the 25th chapter, 2nd chapter and the 25th verse, a very similar thing? Because there was going to be a joint rulership, not a joint rulership as such, because Yahweh Shai was going to be King of Kings, but we are joint heirs with Yahweh Shai, and therefore we're privy to the same blessing that he was going to have. So he had the blessing to rule the nations, and guess what? He said, look, upon the resurrection, upon the regeneration, right, you 12 are going to sit with me and judge the 12 tribes of Israel, man. And he's also going to judge the nations, which is the same blessing that he got. 6th verse, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared for her of the Most High that they should feed her 1,060 days. And then it goes into the World War III scenario right there. So that lets you know that there was a foreshadowing that was happening here within the book of Mark, the 7th chapter on the 24th verse. And from thence, Mark 7 and 24, and from thence, Mark 7 and 25 and 5. So for a certain woman whose young daughter had an unclean spirit, heard of him, came and fell at his feet. Okay, and this is what we're doing. We're falling before the feet of Yahweh. Yahweh Shai, we're like, look, Lord, Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh, have mercy upon us. Redeem us from this wretched kingdom, man. Take Esau out, man. Okay, put us in a good place, man. Because this is a whack-ass kingdom. This is a whack-ass kingdom. You gotta put a plastic thing around your penis to have sex with a woman. What kind of a life is that? You gotta have one woman and that woman's cheating on you. right? You grow up, you raise your kid and your children, you love your children, and they come bringing Santa Claus back in the house. What kind of life is this, man? This ain't no way to live life, man. Okay? We look for, as the scripture says, we look for a new heaven and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. So we can observe the Hanukkah, we can observe the different festivals that was righteous. And, you know, the signal's dropped off now, but it'll build back up, right? We have particular customs that was what? That was to be kept, okay? Right? We had particular customs that was good to keep, and so when the kingdom of the Heavenly Father is set up, we gonna be good, man. We gonna be good. All right. So let's continue here. Mark 7:24. It says there, 25. And for a woman whose young daughter had an unclean spirit heard of him and came and fell at his feet, and the woman was a Greek. Okay. Now let's take a stop there, and then we can break that segment of the whole video down. Okay. So in fact, what I'll do is, yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Okay. So we can pause here. We're gonna take a pause here, and then we're gonna go into this term Greek and why it is why we need to get into it is because there's a whole history concerning the Israelites and the Greeks. Okay. There's a whole history concerning the 12 tribes of Israel, all right, and the Greeks, man. All right, and that all goes back onto the Greco-Roman Empire, where you had it to where Alexander and his so-called his four generals, not his so-called, but rather more his four generals, had gone in and took over the world, the known world, and spread forth what? The Greek customs onto them, onto the whole entirety of the whole world. And then as a result, they Hellenized the known world. So let's just read that little segment again, and then we're gonna be of the understanding that that this term Greek, really goes into something more that's being said there. Okay, and ultimately when it says here, and I suppose we say Syro phenecian, and it's gonna say something else a little bit later on. All we need to understand is that these were not these are not biblical nationalities. Now, what it's going to say within the book of Matthew is likened onto a biblical nationality, because you do have the children of Canaan within the earth. But guess what? All right, you also got a land of Canaan. Okay, it's not, you also got a land of Canaan. Now, you got some nations that have got really all the nations are supposed to have land, but that's called after their name. But Canaan, especially, he had a land that was called after, known as the land of Canaan. And if you have a particular individual that lived within that land, there was what? There was a Canaanite, but you also had the seed of Canaan, and it's going to go into that, right? But let's deal with this term here, Greek, and understand that not every person that's called a Greek is of Edomite heritage, and therefore we got a situation where we need to understand the scriptures a little bit better.
I'm gay, hi. What's going on?
How we do?
Excuse me. Is there any pubs with music?
Pubs with music?
Yeah.
If you go...
Actually, I'd hear some.
If you go right,
yeah,
but not this immediate right here, you need to go into the second right over there. There's little pubs in that inside there.
You start.
No problem, man. Right, so to continue here, so let's deal with this term Greek, right? It says that the woman was a Greek, a Syro phenecian by nation, and she besought him that she would cast forth the devil out of her daughter. Okay, so let's deal with these terms right here. So first and foremost, what we need to understand is what does the term Greek mean? Okay, what's the word there? All right, let's check this live feed. I'm just a bit skeptical about this. I don't know why this signal always drops. Every time I want to do a video, the signal is terrible. Right, so it says here Helen. So that's the word here that's used for the term Greek. Helen. Okay, a Greek either by nationality, whether a native to the mainland of the land of Greek or island or colonies in a wider sense. The name embraces all nations, and it says they're not Jews, and that could throw people off, but ultimately the reason why it says they're not the Jews, because there was a battle that happened between the Maccabees and the Greeks for the Jews that was left out there within the land of Israel to maintain their heritage, so to speak. Okay, and that's important too to understand that, because guess what, the Israelites that you had out there that did fall into the ways that their forefathers fell into the customs of the Greeks, all right, they was looked down upon because this whole battle had played out between the Greeks and the and the Israelites, man. So you imagine someone's forefathers, all right, was one of the forefathers that had died, all right, in the in keeping the law, right? You had particular individuals that they said, look, you gotta eat the swine or we're gonna put you to death. So imagine that was one of your forefathers, and then you have the child of one of the forefathers, or the ones that just was like, yeah, I'm down with the Greco-Roman customs, man. There was gonna be a tension amongst them. Okay, there was gonna be a friction, man, a schism, if you will. Okay, we live, we're still live. This will do. It'll do. All right, so let's continue here. So it says there, so Greek. Right, in a wider sense, the name embraces all nations, not the Jews that made the language and customs and learnings of the Greeks their own. Our primary reference is to the difference of religion and worship. Okay, so now we need to go into the book of the Maccabees and deal with the book of the Maccabees and go into the scriptures concerning the Israelites and why this term Greek is used to describe a person, right, that had followed the Greek customs. So now what I could do now is we can go through the premise. We can understand what's going on behind the scenes, so to speak. So you have Alexander, the so-called Greek. He comes into power, right? Now what made their rulership different, apart from the what made them different from the Assyrians or the Babylonians is that they didn't just enslave people. They move them around. They stripped them of their culture, right? And basically made them to worship the Greco-Roman way of life, okay? The Greek way of life. Now, what you have is a situation right now where the American way of life is the same thing is happening, okay? So the same thing is happening with the American way of life, whereby you are taught to worship the way of the American life, man. You are encouraged to be, an American. You're encouraged to be, very hedonistic in your behavior, okay? Because the behavior of the American way of life is a very hedonistic way of living, man. Okay, that's a very hedonistic way of living. And as a direct result, if you're underneath that particular vibration, you was gonna be what? You ain't gonna be following the customs of the laws, statutes, commandments of the Heavenly Father. Okay, I'm losing my train of thoughts here. So let's get into the scriptures, right? So the book of Maccabees, let's start here with the book of Maccabees, the first chapter, and then we're gonna build the picture up a little bit by little bit, okay? So Maccabees, the first chapter. The first Maccabees. Right, 1, and we can start from the top. So it says here, and it happened after that Alexander, the son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius the Persian, Darius the king of the Persians and the Mede, right? He reigned in his stead, the first over all Greece. So this is the first, Edomite king, if you will, right, to rule over the earth. Now you had, many other after, and you got it to where, Esau is ruling and he's in power right now. And he made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth. So your first, when you're a king of many lands, right? One of the things that you want to be able to do is to control how those people think. You want to control, basically, you want to stop them from rebelling. Okay, one of your key objectives is to stop those people from rebelling, because any type of rebellion is going to have it to where your rulership, right, within those places is going to be diminished or it's going to be challenged. Okay, so that's a key concept to grapple onto for the time being, right? And when he went through the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, insomuch the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he exalted his heart and was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over the countries and the nations and the kings who became tributaries unto him. And after these things he fell sick and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, had been honorable unto him from his youth, and parted his kingdom amongst them. So the Seleucids had a particular portions, the Ptolemies had a particular portion. I believe Lassicus, I forget the names, but I always forget the name of the other two. They are the other portions of the earth, and they started their dynasties in their respective regions. Okay, so the Ptolemaic dynasty was out there within Egypt, and the Seleucid dynasty was out there within that region of Syria. How are you? Okay, he was ruling that particular region. So what happens now is Antiochus is going to come into the picture, and he's within that region where the Israelites is situated. Okay, and this is the process where the Hellenizing of the Israelites came about. Wherefore they could be said that they was behaving like the Greeks, man. Okay, they was behaving like the heathen because they was underneath that vibration of the Greeks. Okay, they was underneath that vibration. They was living the customs. They was living in the way of the Greeks, man. Okay, they was living in that. You had Jakes that was heavy into that, just like you got Jakes that are heavy into the American way of life right now. You had Jakes that was heavy into the Greco-Roman way of life, to the end that when the Jews had particularly, they had been able to establish the church and been able to re-sanctify the church, and that's where you get the story of Hanukkah and all of this, that. When you had all of that, now those men were righteous when they did that, but their wicked sons, right, trying to, in some similitude, trying to follow the ways of their forefathers, but really being wicked because they was proud. Okay, their sons was all about being, basically over righteous, man. They was all about the outward. That's the term I'm looking for. That's the descriptive factors that I'm looking for. They was all about the outward righteousness. The wicked sons are those righteous men that fought the battles against the Seleucid Empire, and ultimately they won and rededicated the temple and all this, that, and the third. Their wicked son was all about the outward righteousness of the man. Right? They had forgotten. Well, really, they wasn't privy to the fact that Yahweh Shai deals with the internal man. All right, the man that was going to be faithful unto Yahweh Shai unto death. And this is what this woman was exemplifying. She was exemplifying that faith, and through her faith, her child was healed. As the same thing that you saw within what you're going to see within the book of Acts, the 10th chapter. Right. So First Maccabees 1:9, it says, and after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves, and so did their sons many years after him, and evils were multiplied within the earth. So you had a situation where iniquity was multiplied within the earth at the inception of the Greco-Roman Empire. How's that any different to the times that we're living in right now? The minute Esau came on the scene, right, he started killing things, okay? After what was known as the Byzantine Empire, he started killing things, he started burning things, it's been chaos on the earth since Esau's rule. He's ruled for 350 years, and the earth is itching, man, sneezing. Because that's what all of these earthquakes and stuff like that. That's the earth shivering, man. Everything has a vibration. When we start throwing off this vibration, what does it want to do? It wants to return back onto its natural state, and that's what's happening with the earth right now. The earth is trying to return back onto its natural state, man. Okay. Now let's continue here. It says here, this is the important bit. And they came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king of the Seleucid Empire, who had been a hostage at Rome. And you can go into all the history about Antiochus Epiphanes and how he's been hostage in Rome, and then later came back and whatever. We're not going to get into that for the time being. And he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. And in those days they went out of Israel, right, wicked men who persuaded men in saying, let's make a covenant with the heathen that are round about of us rathermore. For since we departed from them, we've had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well, and certain of them were so far forward therein that they went out to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise in Jerusalem, according to the customs of the heathen, okay, and made themselves, and this is the key factor. We're going to come back onto this particular point a little bit later on, because there's a term, right, there's a statement that's made here, right, that's going to be relevant when we read when we get into the faith of Abraham, and when we're getting into what? You okay there, mate? Right, there's a particular point that's made there that's going to become relevant when we're getting into the faith of Abraham, and more subsequently the difference between the Jews that were circumcised and the uncircumcision, right? Because the uncircumcision through faith inherit the kingdom, but the circumcised through their outward righteousness, but inwardly they was as if it was a temple, a sepulchre with dead man's bones in it. They was gonna be destroyed, man. Right, just like you got Jakes right now, they're all about the outward appearance, how a particular thing, man looks righteous, or I look righteous on the outside. Lord, look at my garments, this, that, and the third. But inwardly, you don't have the faith of Yahweh Shai, man. That's what we're really reading about here. How the faith of Yahweh Shai was going to be opened up onto what? Riffraff, rags, bums, or whatever terms come to mind. But really, we could use the more biblical term, the meek. Okay? It was going to be given unto the meek. Right, and the meek was gonna have that faith, man. That's what we're really reading with the book of Mark, Mark 7:24. That's what we're really reading, okay? But we're gonna get all onto that a little bit later on. Right now, we're dealing with this term of Hellenin, right? And why this term Greek is used.
I'm coming up in 10 minutes.
Okay, so the feed is not too it's terrible. But hopefully the audio is coming out. Usually the audio comes out all right.
That was a no.
Right, so let's continue here. It says here, and they came out of them a wicked root, surnamed Antiochus Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been an hostage at Rome and reigned in the 137th year of the Greeks. And in those days they went out of Israel, right? They went out of Israel. Oh, so we read all of that. Right, so this is the point I was at right now. So First Maccabees 1, and we are at the 15th verse, but we can start from 14. It says, whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined